All right, we're live. This wasn't supposed to happen, but alas, here we are. Welcome to a brand new edition of Off the Cuff on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network on the YouTube page. This is going to go on all the podcasting platforms as well, so you may be listening there. But thanks for joining us. If you're going to be watching, my name is Mike Keck. Hope you're all having a great week so far. This week on the show, the panel is cut in half. Kyle Steele needed the night off. Craig Allen had church league playoff hockey. So like the song says, it's just the two of us tonight. Joining me, as always, Mr. Reliable himself, the one, the only, Drake Riggs. How are you, sir?
Fantastic, Mike. You know, four's a crowd anyway, so it's going to be better this way. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, look forward to it.
I couldn't agree more. If you guys got questions, fire them away. We're going to, like I told Drake before we hit record, we're just flying from the seat of our pants right now. I don't really have a lot prepared. I do have some email questions I can pull up, but we're just going to kind of shoot the breeze, and you guys can dictate this conversation wherever it goes as you guys are jumping on. So let's get into this thing, Drake. First off, people are still talking about the main event of UFC Auckland. There's still a lot of people torn on who they thought won the fight between Dan Hooker and Paul Felder. Of course, two of the judges scored it for Dan Hooker. It was a great fight. What did you think? How did you score it?
So I gave Hooker the first two rounds, and then Felder 3 and 4. And then the fifth round to Hooker because of that late takedown, which I feel like might not have been. I haven't watched it, since the first time. But looking back on it, I'm like, okay, how much did he really score with it? He had the full minute of control. Didn't do a whole lot of damage though. He got some transitions. I remember I think he got into full mount like right before the bell sounded. Right, so I mean, it's like how much it was weighed there, because that's obviously, I think that came down to it for a lot of people. I guess obviously what came down to it for me, because I think Felder was just edging it, man. The whole fight was so insanely close. Like every single round, I saw scores pretty much all over the place. Like some people thought Felder won the first two, and then Hooker with like the opposite of mine. I was like, okay, I mean, I get it. It was that close and that competitive. So no robbery or anything. Like we always got to mention that, but because people will say and have said, Felder should have won. They're like, yeah, sure, yeah, maybe he should have, but he wasn't robbed. Did you see like both of those guys were so beat up after that fight? It's just like it was insane. Like it was what we expected. I think it just wasn't it was a lot cleaner. It wasn't like a wild sloppy fight. It was so good though, man. That was phenomenal. You can't be mad at the result there. I mean, if it was a draw, I would have been probably most happy,
Right? Yeah, I agree.
It's like Bigfoot, Mark Hunt won, like that kind of fight.
I said this on Between the Links last night, and I've said it throughout the recap as well. I scored it for Felder, but I ain't mad at you if you scored it for Dan Hooker. I thought Hooker looked great in the first round. Felder picked it up a little more in the second. I thought Hooker got the third. And Felder, I thought the fourth round was his best round. And I thought in the fifth, Felder landed the more effective shots, and he did more damage in that final round. Yeah, and I understand, Hooker getting the takedown, how you maybe score that, but I didn't think he did very much with it. But I'm not a judge. And like Dana White says, who gives a shit what we think? We're not judges. But what's interesting is we have seen a lot of these close decisions so far in 2020, and people are just up in arms about it. We're screaming robbery left and right. Let's change how we score fights. Let's do open scoring. Let's do half points. And to me, these kinds of fights, these are the kind of fights we wanted for the sport for a long time. Like we wanted the best guys to fight the best guys. We wanted the headliners to deliver. And the game has changed over the years. Like fighters are evolving. The cream of the crop is rising to the top for a reason. Because of that, we're going to see a lot more of this stuff. We're going to see a lot more of these kinds of fights. Yes, it sucks when your favorite fighter loses a really close decision. And don't get me started on the pay structure. That's another podcast on the road. But for entertainment purposes, don't we want highly competitive fights like these, Drake? Like, isn't this what we hoped for when Hooker and Felder and Jones and Reyes were booked?
No, exactly, man. You are 100% right. It's so funny to me, because when I think about defining like a good fight, it's always a competitive one in my opinion. Like if we go back to, here's a good example I look at, Gilbert Melendez and Diego Sanchez, right? I don't think that was a good fight definition wise because it wasn't very competitive. We know that Gilbert obviously was winning that fight. Yeah, it was very entertaining because it was, so crazy, and Diego was being Diego in his, most Diego-ness, but competitively, it wasn't really a good fight. Like there's other examples of that one. Most Diego fights, I guess, would probably be a good example of that. So yeah, no, this is like the highest level kind of fight that you want, and it's what we're going to get as the sport continues to progress. Because this sport, I still think people forget how young it really is. Like what, like 26 years now? I mean, man, think about like the NFL is they just had their 100th season, you know, like this is a quarter of what that is. So there is still so much more to be seen. It's only going to get so much better. And if you think about how quickly the sport has progressed too, when you look at like the NFL, for example, there, I know not really a good example, but if you want to look at it, you go from like the 50s and the 60s, like those days, to then it's like, man, it's really uncomparable. If you think about it changing that much, that's an absolutely mind-blowing thought. I don't know if it's going to be that crazy of a, you know, jump in talent and all that, but it's exciting to imagine it.
I mean, it's crazy watching like 6'9", 375-pound linemen running 4.8 40s. Like that is frightening. That is absolutely frightening. And I feel like the sport's just going to get better and better. I'm really looking forward to like this next generation because, you know, 6, 7, 8-year-old kids when I was growing up, I mean, it was t-ball and soccer and basketball and things like that. And it was like that probably in the 90s and the early 2000s as well. Now you get kids. I have a niece who's like 9 years old taking jujitsu classes right now. I'm like, this is crazy. Like these people, like there are kids who are coming up right now. Like I interviewed this amateur fighter, Isaac Moreno. He's been doing martial arts since he was 3 years old, and he's killing these amateur fighters in Houston. Like the next generation of fighters that we're going to see in the next 10, 15 years, like these are the kinds of fighters we're going to see. It is nuts to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, man. I don't have much to add to that. It's definitely, that's just the thing with the progression, you know, as the sport gets more known and what's the word I'm looking for? More accepted, I guess, you know, because back in the day, people weren't like, oh, this is such a barbaric thing. I would never want my kids to be in it. But then as, you know, it evolves more and I realize, oh, you know, it's an art. You got to remember that word's in there. So it's really not about it being, you know, just a savage. I mean, obviously there's those people out there and there's always going to be, because it's fighting. Combat is always going to be, you know, a very primal thing. But at the same time, you know, it's a very disciplined, you know, it's an art really. So yeah, man, that's the cool thing about MMA. I think is just, there's so many, just the progression of it has been so unique, I think, to watch. And yeah, just the more and more that we see young, like literally children, you know, getting into it and just continue to stick with it, it's going to be, you know, wild to see how good that they can be. You know, everyone thought Sage was going to be so awesome and all, but just wait. I don't think you have an idea how crazy it's going to get.
Like there are kids who are developing their brains right now that are watching Michel Pereira fight right now. And they're like, oh my God, I could do that. And like 10 times better than that. So that's a little crazy as well. Yeah. In terms of Hooker and Felder, one of the questions that I've gotten a lot is, you know, was this the fight of the year so far in 2020? You know, where would you rank Hooker and Felder in terms of fight of the year so far in 2020? Like, I don't think it's number one, but I think it's up there. Where do you have that one, Drake?
I'm really trying to think here about, you know, some of the fights that we've seen so far. I mean, if I can't think of one like right away, then this is probably, you know, right up there. Cause I thought it was very, very good. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, you know, glued, like I can't blink at this. I can't look away at this one, cause I might miss something. And that's how, you know, they were so active. They landed almost the exact amount, like same strikes, the volume and the output was like all the same. It was like 116 to 119 or something crazy. You know, I don't know, you never know if the stats are exact like that, but they were, you know, throwing a lot, obviously, if you watch the fight. I mean, yeah, man, that fight was really good. I'm blanking on, you know, that possible other contenders. You know, Jones Reyes was really good too. But I don't think it was as good as this one, just because it was just an intense fight. And I think even the atmosphere of this one, being in Hooker's backyard, his first main event, just the elements of this one were a lot more. It was just a really intense feeling fight. And, you know, and you see Paul Felder get booed, you're like, and he's so intense coming out, man, I think it just all lined up perfectly. And, you know, I tweeted this out too, that I thought the whole entire scene of that main event, from the walkouts to like the end, the post-fight interviews, man, that was MMA at its absolute purest, man. Because you see every single emotion that we could possibly see, you know, in that main event. It was so crazy. You know, Felder, you know, contemplating retirement, which he talked about a little bit after the Barboza fight, just if he didn't win, just like he's been thinking about it. And so you just see all that, just the emotion coming out of everybody. You know, Hooker gets that big win and he calls out Justin Gaethje after a fight like that. I'm like, he's insane. He's literally insane, man. So when I look at the whole entire picture, yeah, man, that's the fight of the year so far for me. But I don't want to say that definitively, because, you know, I feel like I am forgetting something. Maybe you got something in mind.
Yeah, I mean, just to be safe, it's top 4 or 5 for sure. I mean, there's been some pretty good fights. Like Jones Reyes is probably number 1 for me because people are still talking about that fight, and there was so much on the line. And is Dominic Reyes, did he actually do the unthinkable and beat John Jones? And a lot of people think he did and still think that. Number 2, Sodiq Yusuff and Andre Fili was a great fight. I'm going to throw that in there. Yeah. I thought Brett Johns and Tony Gravely was a great fight. And then Hooker and Felder's right in that mix. So I'd say top 3 or 4, but I mean, tomorrow that could all change. So,
yeah. And this is only UFC we're talking about too.
I know, right? I know. We're not even diving into that other side. You wait till Ryzen starts throwing these cards out there.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. That's going to be an interesting year in MMA. I want to pull this up real quick. This is an interesting question. So Tim writes, okay, if you were given the money to start a brand new MMA site and you could hire 5 people to work with you outside of Helwani and Okamoto, who would you put on your team, Drake?
Well, that is a very good question. 5 people. 5 people that I would put on my team. See, this is a kind of an interesting one because, I feel bad leaving certain people out. But
right. I wish we could pick 12 or like 15.
Okay, let's see here, though. I'm going to give this a good answer. So I have to pick James Lynch, of course. Then I think I would pick John Yunko. These are all kind of biased, because these are like guys who I'm more close with and everything. But at the same time, they're very good at what they do. John, you get that international flavor, very good with the agency. And for my side, I would want to cover absolutely everything I can. So you got James, who is pretty much a Swiss Army knife at this point, good with the regional guys. So then John, Asian fighters, he does pretty much everybody too. And this isn't including ourselves, right? Because, I'd have to be on the team. Well, of course, you, Mike. I have to say each other, right? No. So there's the 3 there. And then let's see the final 2. Maybe Sean Al-Shadi, very good writer. And that Travis Fulton story, absolutely insane. Just phenomenal work there. Check that out if you haven't. So that's 4 people now. 5th one, let's see. Probably Aaron Bronstetter. I'll take Bronstetter on there just because, all over the place. He's one of the best, obviously. That's hard to pick, just off the top of my head, though. I think that's a pretty solid team.
Yeah, that's a great team. This is crazy. I wish you could pick like 15 people.
Right.
Nolan's my number 1 pick. I mean, he's my number 1 pick. Like, how can you not be? Between the long form features he does, the connections he has, the tenacity he has, the way he breaks fights. I mean, that guy just rose through the ranks real quick. And he's just getting started. He's like 24 years old. I mean, this guy's got a long future ahead of him. I think he's one of those guys.
Me too. So compare both of us. He's killing it.
Yeah, right. Honestly, like I think Jose Youngs is super underrated. Like, and you need social media in this game, and I think he's one of the best at handling social media stuff. James Lynch is on my team. And Drake, yes, you would be on my team as well. And I'm not just saying that because you're here. I would say it anyways. I love JHK too and Al-Shadi and stuff. I think, just to mix it up, like I want to add a female element to the mix. So with that, give me Kristen King. Like I think she's going to be a mover and a shaker in the sport in the next couple of years. So for me, I'm going to strike before the iron is scorching hot with her. But I mean, shit, there's so many talented people out there. There's a lot of people out there that a lot of people don't know of yet. And it's kind of unfortunate, but 5 is such a tough number to pick. And, kind of like the way we sort of rank the fights of 2020, that could change tomorrow. I could watch an interview tomorrow and be like, nope, you're out and this person's in.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Off the cuff. Haha. That's what I'm going with here. But I apologize to anybody else. This is definitely not a slap in the face to anybody because there's so many good people out there. Yeah. I got a lot of like UFC Norfolk questions for the like how things are lined. So let me just pull these up. I think it's an appropriate time for the return of the lined right, not right segment that we did a few weeks back. And I don't know if we were live when we did that. We may have been, but
I don't think so.
No, we weren't live for that one. But there were a couple of fights that were asked about specifically, and I'm still blurry facing for some reason. But I'm going to go off of Oddshark for this. So first off, Drake, I mean, we got to talk about the main event. Definitely the most intriguing, definitely the selling point of this whole card. Joseph Benavidez and Davison Figueiredo for the vacant UFC flyweight title. Currently, Joseph Benavidez is the minus 140 favorite. Figueiredo is a slight dog at plus 110. Do you think this is line right or not right?
That sounds, yeah, pretty perfect to me. I mean, you look at Benavidez's body of work. For my money, the most underrated fighter of all time, hands down, pretty easily. I'd probably put maybe, Rafael Assunção up there too. A couple of these guys. But either way, Benavidez, one of the most underrated ever. He's only lost to 3 people, arguably 2. I mean, the Pettis fight was really close. Obviously had a rough first round, but rallied back really strongly. And then he's lost to 2 GOATs in Dominic Cruz and Demetrius Johnson. So no shame in those. Then he's beat everybody else, literally everybody else. The guy, he's just one of the most underrated ever. I don't think there's any debate about it. He's seen it all. He's over 30 fights now. The experience, just everything in his favor. Still one of the top guys hanging in there, not looking like he's slowing down really. Even tore his ACL, came back just fine. That's when he had the Pettis loss and all that. But obviously Figueiredo is really a unique flyweight who's got just incredible finishing power, whether it's knockout or submission. Obviously more knockouts than submissions. Only 3 decisions out of 18 fights. 4 decisions if you count the loss, 3 in his wins. So I mean, man, it's going to be super good. I think the 5 rounds might actually favor Figueiredo a little bit, just because he has more time to land something or get a finish, but we don't know how he'll do in the late rounds. We've seen Benavidez can go all day. So yeah, I think that's pretty perfect, just because keep it close, because Figueiredo more likely to get a finish, even though Benavidez has shown he can finish too plenty of times, but not as much of a finisher, more of a well-rounded kind of guy. Not to say Figueiredo isn't. It's close. Okay, that's what I'm getting at. The experience, though, goes in Benavidez's favor. So that's kind of why I think that you have to put him as the guy. Just when you look at his body of work, there's just more to it. So yeah, that's fine with me.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much where it needs to be. Like I would maybe shift it like 10 points for each guy. Like maybe Benavidez minus 150 plus 120, but I mean, it's pretty much line right. I'm not going to complain about it. It's pretty much right. I can't wait for that fight. It's really fascinating. This one I've heard a lot about, even from like my little brother who just watches the fights strictly from a gambling perspective because he's kind of a degenerate in that way. Megan Anderson is fighting Norma Dumont, who is making her debut in the UFC. She's 4-0 from Brazil, hasn't competed in a fight in well over a year now. So right now, Megan Anderson is a minus 240 favorite and Dumont is a plus 190 dog. What do you think on this one?
Probably a little bit low, honestly. I think I'd probably have Megan as a bigger favorite, just because I watched Craig's breakdown earlier today, so I got this nugget from him. Shout out to Craig, who's not here, so I'm helping you out, buddy. He said that Norma is, usually fought at bantamweight. I haven't looked into this, so I'm taking his word completely. Is generally a bantamweight. I don't know if she's fought at featherweight before, but either way, smaller than Megan. A lot of people are smaller than Megan. Not that is a massive thing. We've seen, Megan obviously had the loss to Holly, who's smaller. But yeah, and then the year off of it, the inactivity that she's had. And then, Megan looking good on the ground in her last fight, showing that, there's more to her than just being a striker. And then when as a striker, she's one of the most powerful hitters in the division, and can put you out at any moment. So yeah, I think that this is going to be a tough one for Norma. But, you never know in MMA. But yeah, it's like, it's really hard to pick against her here with just what we know, because we know much more about her. So I'm kind of surprised it's not bigger.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't know where this thing opened. I can't really find it, but yeah, I thought Megan would be in the minus 300 range or a little bit higher than that. But the inactivity, I mean, it's hard. Like, it's not easy. People throw out octagon jitters. It's kind of a cliche thing, but it's a real thing, especially if this is your 5th professional fight. Like, you've never fought in the United States before. Like, and now you're doing it in the UFC against Megan Anderson, who's looked great. I think her mentality is super on point right now. I think this is a steal at minus 240, if we're being honest. Like, normally, you wouldn't touch a line that high with someone who's flip-flop wins and losses through 4 fights in the UFC. But I feel like Megan wins this one rather easily, but we'll see. Last one we're going to take a look at, Magomed Ankalaev is a minus 210 favorite over Ion Cutelaba. Comeback on Ion is plus 160. Line right or not right?
Okay, what is it again? Sorry about that.
Minus 210 for Ankalaev and plus 160 for Cutelaba.
I think that's probably fine. I mean, Cutelaba, I think that he's kind of been unreliable in my opinion. There was the point where he was there was a Cannonier fight, where he was looking good. My memory might be a little off on him, but it feels like, it's been hot and cold. There was the Khalil Roundtree one, which I think people were so high on Khalil after, his recent performances, moving to, really work on his his Muay Thai and everything. And then he goes out and, Kutalaba goes out and finishes him impressively. So it's like hard to trust him. And I think with Ankalaev, we've seen more consistency. So I think he's got to be favored. It seems a bit more well-rounded to me. He can take the fight to the ground. And, obviously he's no joke on the feet either, as he got that front kick. I might be mixing up the Russians here, but I'm pretty sure he was the one who got the front kick. He might not be, actually. There might have been a middleweight. So either way, Ankalaev very well-rounded, though, and he's legit. I just think we've seen more consistency from him in multiple areas of his game. Obviously, Kutalaba, very powerful light heavyweight and aggressive, just has that in-your-face kind of attitude. So yeah, I mean, I think this sounds about right. Yeah, I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's lined right. This fight to me kind of reminds me of Lauren Murphy versus Andrea Lee, because I'm not a gambler. I don't bet on fights, but if I were to throw dog money on anybody on this card at these prices, I'd probably throw it on Kutalaba, because he is such a wild man.
Yeah.
And the price is just right. But at the end of the day, the real winner, the winners are going to be us, because I think this is going to be such a banger. I think those two guys are just going to shit out of each other. And my friend Cole Shelton has chimed in. Thank you, Cole. What does the UN, assuming she and Felicia win, as Felicia would most likely be getting that title shot at 145, as Nunes has made it known she wants to defend that title next? So, I mean, it kind of seems that way. Felicia Spencer, since she has the win over Megan Anderson, would probably have carte blanche, so to speak, in getting that title shot against Amanda Nunes. But honestly, I think Megan Anderson's a bigger name. I think she has a bigger following right now. I think it depends on the performance. What do you think? Like, do you think, let's say Felicia Spencer goes out and gets a 30-27 unanimous decision across the board, but Megan Anderson flatlines Norma Dumont in the first 90 seconds of the fight. How do we go about this in terms of fighting Amanda Nunes next?
Yeah, I think what you said is a realistic possibility, go off the performance and whatnot. But honestly, I think that if they both win, we're going to get an interim title fight. I know that sounds insane. I know that sounds very, very crazy in a division of 6 or 5.5 people, because Leah Lettson's kind of in the middle. Well, I guess 5. We can take away Nunes is kind of half and half too, I would say. Either way, yeah, that's a crazy thought. But hear me out. Okay?
There's 3.5 women's featherweights in the UFC right now.
There's not many. That's the point. So I think that we will see an interim title fight between them two. Rematch. You could sell a rematch. They can put it as maybe not a headliner, but a co-main event. And then here's the thing. You have Nunes fight Aldana in the meantime, right? Doesn't matter. Win or lose there, then she still has the featherweight title. But if she loses, I'm sure they do the instant rematch with Aldana. That obviously make sense. But assume that Nunes wins that. Then in the meantime, you get an interim champion at featherweight. If somebody has a title there, a lot easier to sell for them. They love having belts on people to, make the fight bigger. I don't know if they, trust this, because we've seen Nunes not a great draw. Like, you look back at the Pennington fight, what was it, the lowest ever in the modern era? So it's like, do they have much to gain from a business standpoint by putting Nunes against somebody who isn't super popular, in between Megan and Felicia? Yeah, Megan is the bigger name, I think. But, when it comes to how big somebody can be, is she big enough for them to feel comfortable putting her in a title fight without another additional selling point, which would be a gold belt, whether interim or not, silly as it would be. They could be like, oh, champion versus champion kind of thing, So I think that business wise, that is the most realistic thing. Obviously, if you're not going to do that, then yeah, performance. But I mean, at the same time, it's like, do they really care if Nunes goes back and fights at featherweight? They're just letting her hold on to the title now. She hasn't defended it since winning it in 2018, at the end of 2018. So that's what I think is going to happen, but we'll see.
I mean, I think you're probably right. I think if we're making odds, I think you're lined right here. Man, this is honestly, here's what I think. I am not a proponent of 3 title fights on a card. Like, I understand the pizzazz and the salesmanship of it all. I get it. If Megan Anderson goes out there and just crushes Norma Dumont and has that, that ESPN MMA Twitter account, little headliner there and it gets like a couple million views, which it might, I would not hate throwing Amanda Nunes in a Megan Anderson fight on that Perth card. I mean, if you're going to throw a third title fight on if it's from any division, women's featherweight is the perfect one to do. Because let's just think about it this way. Like, you're looking at July, August. I mean, these cards are filling up anyways. I mean, International Fight Week, like, yeah, maybe you could throw that on there. But if you're going to throw Conor McGregor on there, it doesn't really matter. Like, Conor's the draw itself. You can just put anything you want on there. I mean, John Jones wants to stay active. There's just so many things you can do. So I don't think I think you could do that if you really wanted to. But, I mean, I don't know if that's what's going to happen. But I wouldn't hate that idea. But
I think you got to get Megan on that card
and let's
either
kind
way.
of remember, and let's also kind of remember, like, the rankings, they don't mean shit. What have you done for me lately? It doesn't mean anything. It means nothing. We got Yoel Romero fighting for a title. We got Jose Aldo fighting for a title. Both these guys have lost back-to-back fights. They care about money and business and draws. That's what it's all about. And just look at the social media numbers. Megan Anderson is a bigger name than Felicia Spencer is. Felicia Spencer has the win. Felicia Spencer's probably a better fighter overall, probably a more well-rounded martial artist, but Megan Anderson's the bigger draw, especially on a card like that. That place, Perth, will just be massive and the building will be electric. So, but we'll see what happens. That's a good question, Cole. That's another podcast for another day as well. If you guys get questions, throw them in there. We're going to jump into the buy-sell segment here. Got the email up here. We'll probably get to 4 or 5 of these. And if you guys want to throw some questions, I will do that as well. First one, here we go. Buy or sell, Drake Riggs, that if a fighter misses weight, not only should they lose a percentage of their purse, but they should be deducted points for the fight itself. I see this idea thrown around a lot, Drake. What say you? You buying this or selling this?
I love that idea. I've seen the question of whether or not they should be deducted as many points as pounds they missed, which is a kind of maybe a little extreme. But if you take away maybe a point per round or something like that, at least 1 point, then it kind of creates that incentive of, all right, man, it's harder for them to win because it's just not fair. When you see somebody come in overweight and then, still go on and win the fight, maybe it would have happened either way, but come on, this is the whole point, is to have the sportsmanship and, do what your opponents do and make everything fair as you can. So yeah, I'm for that idea. I think that, probably the biggest thing, I buy this idea, but the biggest thing that I would try to, start in terms of making sure people don't miss weight more, even though it doesn't happen too much these days, it seems like, is, take away more money, because nobody wants to lose money. If you up it to like half the purse, or, maybe even get a little crazy, go to 70%, something where it's like, hey, you really don't want to miss weight if you're having that much of a, risk of losing that much. I think that's probably the best way to do it, but also kind of very controversial. But, I'm buying the idea. Is the point.
I can't wait to see what those tweets would look like. You missed weight. But she agreed to fight as long as she takes 70% of her purse. Holy shit. Oh man, that'd be hilarious. I guess I'll buy it. Like, I agree with you it creates better discipline. It creates safer weight cuts, maybe keeps guys and gals their natural weight more than we see now. I guess I'll buy that one. But man, now that you said it, I'm in on this 70% discrepancy. That would be a lot. I mean, I feel bad for the fighters, but man, that would be a lot of fun. It's a lot of good little news items. Our good friend JHK is chiming in. Megan versus Amanda would be a bloodbath. Perth is a perfect place to dump a body from what I heard. JHK's ears must be ringing because we just brought his name up a little while ago. Cole has another question. As I said on BTL yesterday, this is a good buy sell question. Drake, buy or sell that this is the worst UFC card in recent memory?
Here, let's look at it here. There's still a TBD on this one, according to Wikipedia.
Who's TBD?
Worst one against Giga Chikadze at featherweight. It says he doesn't have an opponent here. Is this something we missed?
I guess
maybe. Yeah. Let's see. I mean, we got Nardiev here opening the card, which is kind of crazy. Tybura versus Spivak. Luis Pena, Steve Garcia. That's Steve Garcia is coming in late. For me, no. I was really didn't feel anything for that Rio Rancho card too much. Like, I mean, you look at main event too and compare main events there, man, this one's going to be super good. And, as somebody who's, very into, just the women's scene and trying to, give them as much exposure as possible. Cause, I think that they don't give enough exposure, in my opinion, all the time. So, I'm very, into, these featherweight fights. I don't think it's the worst, but I thought that Cole's comment was very funny. It's a card. that needs to be a quote somewhere. So I'm selling that one.
I mean, it is what it is. It's what you would expect for a week before a pay-per-view in Norfolk, Virginia. You're not bringing an A+ ball game to ESPN Plus. You're just not. But this is a prospect showcase kind of a card. You get guys like Nardiev and Brady, Alan Cruz, Spike Carlisle, both guys making their debuts. TJ Brown's making his debut against Jordan Griffin. Jordan Griffin's probably fighting for his job. Brendan Allen's on this card. Kyler Phillips, Gabriel Silva. You got Luis Pena. Grant Dawson's on this card, fighting just a wily veteran and Derek Minner, 34 fights. And then you get some violence up the top with Kutalab and Ankalaev. I don't think it's a terrible card. I mean, obviously star power wise and rankings wise, it's not great. As Cole said, there's only 2 ranked fighters on the card and they're both fighting in the main event. But yeah, I think it's gonna be a fun card to watch. I think it's gonna surprise a lot of people.
I will say though that I think that the UFC cards so far in 2020 that we've gotten, they've been pretty they haven't been that great on paper, like overall, there hasn't been one that's like where everyone's like, oh man, this one's stacked. Can't wait for it. I guess maybe people would say the best one so far is 248 from, if we look at it, and that one's coming up here. But I haven't been super dying to see a full card this year so far. Obviously there have been some good fights here and there, but they haven't really given us anything huge yet. Obviously we will end up getting that where it's just loaded top to bottom, but I don't know if that's normal. I'd have to go back and look at past schedules, but it's just something I noticed. Am I off here?
Yeah, it's just been weird. I'll never forget one of my favorite moments of 2020 was Craig Allen running down the Rio Rancho card from start to finish. That was tremendous stuff. Question for Drake. Drake, is orange the new black?
Well, man, it is actually, this is usually the shirt that I wear when I go running. And so if it's the one that I prefer, I guess it is because it's fitting and, people can see me so I don't get ran over by cars, man.
That's right. Running's a dangerous game, man.
Exactly.
Let me see what else we got here. Oh, buy or sell that Angela Hill will be at worst in line for a #1 contender fight at 115 by the end of the year. There's a lot of love these days, Drake, for Angela Hill. Picked up another nice win on Saturday on short notice. There's 3 wins in a row for Angela Hill. And Drake, I know you hate to hear this, but there's some folks out there that thought she beat your favorite fighter at UFC 238. What do you think of Angela Hill's, potential title prospects as you roll your eyes at that comment?
Well, as you brought it up, and Craig isn't here, I did bring props today. So I got my Chinese warrior mask that I made in China, in Shanghai, in honor of Yan Jianan. So I had to bring that out there.
Hot take mask.
Yes, exactly. The hot take mask. Angela Hill obviously improving a lot. She has looked phenomenal in these last couple fights here. But yeah, I'm going to sell that one, man. I think strawweight's just far too deep. There are some girls who are just stylistic nightmares for her. I think maybe not nightmares, but they're always going to be tough ones for her. She's obviously improving a lot, but I don't know also if the super active fighter, if that's the best ingredient to reach, the highest of highs. We've only really seen it with Cowboy, and, everyone else who's tried to be so active hasn't, reached the same level that he has, and he never even became champion, and most likely won't at this point. And even on Angela's her 6 fights in a year span, she's lost some. It's not like she went on a 6-fight winning streak like Cerrone was able to, and in what he's only did 5 or whatever. But that's what I'm getting at. I think she could maybe get close, but man, strawweight is just so good right now. The fighters are really it's such a deep top 10, 15 even. I don't even have her in the rankings even after her success. That's how good it is. So I mean, yeah, that's going to be a hard sell for me. Maybe she can get there at some point in 2021, but I still think that's going to be tough. You know, she's been really fun, exciting to watch, improving, like I said, but I just think there's too many other good people. That's as simple as it is.
Yeah, I want to get crazy right now and buy this, but I just can't. Like, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it. What a story that would be. I mean, there seems to be one every year that, you know, comes from unranked or at the bottom of the division that shoots their way up to that point after running off some amazing wins. I just don't know if it happens at strawweight. There's just too much talent there at this point. Nothing against Angela. I just think it's.
You better hope she doesn't run into Zhao Nan again.
I know Angela would probably want that rematch at this point. Yeah. JHK with the buy or sell question. Buy or sell Drake Race. Korean Zombie never fights for the title due to his body failing him.
I'm going to sell that one. I think that Korean Zombie is just too exciting. There will be too much desire for everybody to see that. I mean, we want to see that next. Most people seem to want to see that next over the Holloway rematch. I want to see it next over the Holloway rematch. Nothing against Holloway, but I mean, it's like, you know, come on, let's just, it's a weird spot for him. You know, that's a totally different topic, but yeah, man, Korean Zombie's so loved. He's so exciting. He's looking so good lately. Obviously the injuries are a problem, but if he's out for who knows how long, I don't think it'll hurt him that much because I mean, who else could you put over him aside from Holloway right now? You know, Ortega's coming off the loss. You could throw Zabit at him, but that's obviously not the plan. Zabit's going to fight somebody, I believe on 249, right? That's what I was hearing.
Ortega looks like the front runner for that one.
That's right. So yeah, maybe he'll get skipped over by somebody other than Holloway. It's kind of hard for me to imagine that happening depending on how long he's out. I know John obviously knows a lot more about the situation than I do, and I have seen what he's been saying about it, but I don't remember the timetable necessarily, but I think we'll see him fight again for it, man. I mean, it's like, how can you not give Korean Zombie another title shot? That first one was so, you know, it left a lot to be desired.
Yeah, I think his next fight's gonna be for the belt. Like I think Holloway was sort of the plan all along. Like I just think that was gonna be it. I feel like Dana wanted to run that one back no matter what, just because Max Holloway's been, you know, such a company guy for a long time. I know he didn't have like a ton of title defenses, and he wasn't like a 5-year running champion or anything like that. But you know, Max has sort of become the face of that division over the years, and he lost to Volkanovski. And for some reasons, people still think that fight was close. I don't think that fight was close. That Volkanovski dominated that fight. But you know, run it back, give Volkanovski his moment. If not, you know, Holloway gets a big moment as well, and then you can run it back a third time perhaps. But if Volkanovski wins, Korean Zombie has to be the next guy. I don't think you rush Zabit into a title fight at this point. I don't think Ortega is quite there yet. I think featherweight's a very interesting division right now. I think there's a lot of good talent at 45 right now. We still got guys like Cater that's on the rise, who's getting ready to fight Jeremy Stevens, which I think is the absolute perfect fight for him. So that's great. And then we get some other guys in the mix as well. We got the Ryan Halls of the world, Shane Burgos. We got Josh Emmett. We got a lot of other guys. So featherweight's really interesting right now. But I still think Korean Zombie's going to get a title fight whenever he's ready to go sometime in 2020. I think we'll do one more buy sell, and then we'll see if there's any other questions. Buy or sell that the hype surrounding the fallout of Wilder versus Fury 2 is overrated. The card wasn't all that great. The title fight wasn't all that competitive. What do you think? So I assume maybe Sam, he might have heard John Anik say this on Anik and Florian. Anik said he'll take a UFC pay-per-view over that card any day of the week. He feels like all of the hype surrounding it was completely overrated. It was not what it you know, is being portrayed on social media and other outlets as well. Did you watch it? I'm sure you did, being a combat sports fan, but what did you think of Wilder Fury and this notion that it's all overrated?
Well, Mike, I have zero interest in boxing, so I did not watch the fight. I saw the finish, but I just really I don't have any interest in boxing, man. I always think about like, oh man, you could take him down right here. You should throw a head kick and that kind of thing. I don't know. I've obviously, I'm that guy. I'm so in love with MMA that it just does nothing for me. Like I think the last boxing match I watched was Klitschko and Anthony Joshua, which everyone thought was like pretty amazing and all that, right? I was like, yeah, it was okay. You know, it's just they're throwing hands only. It's like, it doesn't do anything for me, man. So I didn't watch it. I was a little interested though, and I actually had casual friends like hitting me up about it and like, oh, we got to see this one. And you know, after I didn't see the first fight either, but obviously you've seen that crazy knockdown where Tyson Fury resurrects himself from the dead. I mean, I think, this is take my opinion for what it is, since I am not a boxing fan whatsoever. It seemed justified to me, seemed like a huge thing. I know that they're in the big three of the best heavyweights, right? Them with Joshua, even though he lost to Ruiz, but got the Ruiz win back. So, I mean, it seemed like a reasonable, amount of hype for such a big deal, because these are the consensus three guys, right? Like, you tell me. But yeah, I mean, especially with what happened in that fight and it being a draw and just super dramatic seeming. I don't know, just from what I have seen and saw, seemed fine to me, but I'm not, in the boxing world. So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll sell that notion, but I guess I understand why people would think that way. Like, and I'm totally fine with Wilder invoking his rematch, and I think I do think it's a far more competitive fight than a fight with Anthony Joshua would be. But, and listen, you can complain about the third fight all you want, but you're gonna watch it. Drake may not watch it, but I think a lot of other people will. So who gives a shit? Run it back, and he had in his contract that he can invoke a rematch clause, and I think anybody else in his shoes would invoke that rematch clause as well. Like, just get it out, and if it's a fluke, if the costume was too heavy for you, then
I was waiting for it.
Costume time. For God's sakes, that is the craziest excuse I've ever heard in my entire life. And maybe there's some truth to it. I'm not Deontay Wilder. I'm not here to judge, but that is, I out of all the things I thought I would hear, I didn't think I'd hear.
Can we talk about that for just a brief second? For just a brief second, you're telling me that he didn't know or realize that it was like that heavy or much of a nuisance before the fight? Do you not try it on before, man? Like, I don't know. It seems
Stephen A said today on First Take that he did try it on the day before.
Like, come on, man. Okay, first of all, as cool as I'm all for giving fighters unique entrances and all that. I love the Ryzen entrances. Bellator, I think those are fine too. Give them a little more uniqueness to what they can go out there. But man, boxers sometimes they just go so overboard. It's like it's kind of ridiculous to me. I mean, maybe that's a little hypocritical to say, but I don't care, man. It's silly.
See, Fury did it right because he sat down and let women carry him on a throne. I mean, not just saying because women carried him. I'm saying that he just sat there and got carried to the ring. Like, that's what everybody should be doing. It should be like WrestleMania 3 when you're sitting in the ring and just you're carted to the ring.
That little ring, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about with the federettes undoing the ropes. Like, that's what they all should be doing. That's what they all should be doing. I have to ask this question. This isn't a buy-sell question, but I think this question is absolutely phenomenal. Now that Henry Cejudo and Jose Aldo is booked, if you were to make a 4-man tournament to decide who would take on the winner of that fight with all the available contenders right now, so not everyone's going to make this 4-man tournament, Drake. Mm-hmm. How are you matching these guys up?
So do I get to pick the contenders, or do I have to go by the actual top 4?
You pick the contenders. This is your show, bro.
Okay, this is my show. Let's see. So obviously Jan and Sterling are in there, and then Sandhagen and wildcard Dominic Cruz. I do want Dominic Cruz in there. I think he deserved, an instant rematch after that loss, but obviously can't do that anymore if we're going by a perfectly logical world. But I would want him in there. And then how I would match those 4. Let's see. I would like to do, I might say Jan versus Sandhagen, and then Sterling against Cruz. I mean, man, you can't go wrong with any of those matchups, dude. Bantamweight is so goddamn good. But yeah, that's what I would probably go with.
Here's what I would do, and maybe this is wrong on my part, but maybe we do it like the NCAA tournament where we have like 2 legit guys that are in there. So maybe since I think Marias is the top seed, right? Oh no, he's not. No, he is.
Yeah,
he's the number 1 contender. He's the number 1 ranked guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what you do is you match up Jan and Sterling, but then you have a fight between Cruz and Marias. Like, I want to see that fight anyways. So maybe selfishly, I just want to see that. And then the winner gets Marlon Marias and gets into the tournament. I know it would take a little bit longer, but who gives a shit, really? I mean, I want to see all of these fights. I want to see all of these guys fight each other. So that's how I would do it. But I mean, we don't even know when Cruz is coming back, but I have to see Cruz and Marias at some point in my life.
See, John's suggestion here, Jan and Sterling, Mariah Sanhagen, I think that's the most logical way to go about that. But yeah, Dominic, wants to come back within these 6 months. I'm hoping so much that he does.
I
know. But yeah, you can't go wrong with mixing and matching those. And just think about then you get the winners against each other. Love it. Doesn't matter.
And Frankie Edgar's chilling out there too, so he might even be in consideration as well. So
I don't know if I'd put him in the tournament, but yeah, he could be an alternate maybe.
Yeah, I mean, in my tournament he's not in, but in the UFC's tournament he may very well be in.
Good point.
So there we go. I'm looking through, and I think we're done here. 45 minutes, just the two of us. Who needs Kyle and Craig? Craig can go play hockey for the rest of 2020 for all I care. And that's that. So Drake, appreciate you jumping on here, man. This is your suggestion to go live at the last minute, and I'm happy to do so. Makes my life a little bit easier. Anything else you want to let the folks know about? Cruz versus Sandhagen is the best matchup. That's a fun fight too. Love to see that. I think we will see that at some point. Thanks to JHK and Cole Shelton for being the only two people watching the show and commenting. Yeah. Appreciate that. That's what happens when you do the shit last minute. But anything you got coming up? Anything you want to plug, my friend?
Let's see. Just some interviews this week. Keep them secret. Oh, I actually have some I did last week. I talked to Randa Marcos before she takes on Amanda Ribas at UFC Brasilia, so that'll be coming out. I think I'm going to try and get it next week because 2 weeks from now or whatever. And then I have a secret one, which is it's going to be I'm excited to see what people think of it because it's very unique. You'll never guess who it is that I talked to. Literally, go ahead, try. You're going to be wrong. It's that kind of thing. Very unique. Look forward to sharing that. And yeah, just some things I got lined up for the rest of the week that will be out whenever they're out. But look for that Randa Marcos one on the scrap when it comes out. Yeah, that's all for now, I think.
So this mystery interview, it's like the Gavin DeGraw singing the national anthem at Wilder Fury 2. You gave me 1,000 guesses on who was going to sing that. Gavin DeGraw would not be one of my 1,000 guesses. Yeah, just follow me on YouTube. Mike, just go to youtube.com/Mike Heck MMA. I had a great interview with Gerald Mearshart today. I've never heard him so fired up in my life. He had a lot of not so nice things to say about Deron Winn, who he's fighting next Saturday at UFC 247. So look out for that. He had a really good interview with Gilbert Burns today. I'm really excited to release that. I'll edit that and put that up there tomorrow morning. I know JHK had a great interview with him as well. We dove into a lot of different things. They told the whole story about how this Maia fight came to be and how he didn't feel like it was going to happen. And all of a sudden it did. And he was like a little kid. It was amazing just to see him light up and reminisce about when he found out he actually got the yes that he was going to fight Demian Maia. So really good stuff there. And I got a bunch of other interviews with prospects and UFC fighters and Bellator fighters, guys who won over the weekend, so forth and so on. So be sure to subscribe to that. Follow our Twitters. You see them right here on the bottom of the screen. For Drake Griggs, I am Mike Heck. We will see you. No need to be scripted. It's better to go off the cuff. I'm going to throw that out there anytime just because it's cheesy as hell and it's hilarious. So thank you guys for watching, and make sure you subscribe here on the network and on wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, etc. Thank you very much. See you later.